Welcome to the Got Invention Show. I'm your host, Brian Freed, and our guest is Herman Amron. He's the inventor of the sticky note. I'm sure everybody's heard of the sticky note, which is now known as the Post-it note by 3M. Before we bring Alan on, I'd like to just show a quick clip of who Alan is.
You may not know who Herman Amron is, but if you spend any time with children, the odds are you've come across one of his inventions. What was once known as a squirt gun is now a high-tech, super-powered, battery-operated, pumped, drenched, and soaked water gun industry. He's taken a simple squirt gun that sold $3 million per year and helped turn it into a new industry worth well over $200 million in annual sales. And all with a simple invention. And now the inventor of the battery-operated water gun, Herman Amron.
And there he is. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you, Brian. How are you?
Doing great. The sticky note, the Post-it note by 3M. You're the man that invented that.
Yes, in 1973.
Wow.
I was needed to leave a note for my wife, and we had just gotten married. We lived in a beautiful house, and I wanted to put a note on the refrigerator for my wife, but we didn't have any Scotch tape around. So I had to figure out a way, necessity is the mother of invention, I had to figure out a way of putting the note, which in those days we called memos. We didn't call them notes, we called them a memo. So I needed to leave my wife a memo that I was going out and I'd be back soon. And so I wrote the note and I went to the refrigerator to put it on the refrigerator, and I'm thinking, I have no Scotch tape. How am I going to put it up there? So I had to figure out a way of putting it on the refrigerator. So I came up with, I was chewing gum at the time. So I took a little piece of gum out of my mouth and I balled it up, a little tiny little piece of it, like the size of a match head. I balled it up in my finger and I kneaded it. I mooshed it around and it was very sticky. So I took some dust off the floor or off the counter and I put it on the gum to make it a little less sticky. And then I put it on the refrigerator and then I put the note on that. And then I tugged on it and it stayed, so I left. When my wife got home, she saw it and she said, wow, that is a great idea. And I'm going, what? I didn't even realize when I was doing it, I was inventing something. I was just creating, I was solving a problem. I had no Scotch tape. I could have used duct tape because I had duct tape, but that would have left the residue on the refrigerator, so I didn't. So my wife got home and the note was still there, and she said to me that it's a great idea and we should, and I worked on it after that. I developed the glue for it. I actually started manufacturing it. I brought it to a trade show, an invention trade show in New York City in 1974, and I had a 10 by 10 booth at this Inventor show. And at the Inventor show, there were a lot of other inventions, like you can imagine. There's like everything from a dog, a toilet for a dog, to all kinds of household gadgets. And the news came around. There was Channel 9 News came around, and they were looking at all the inventions at the show. And they came into my booth. They didn't even mention or look at Post-it note. What they looked at was my battery-operated water gun, which I had introduced at the show as well. And he took the battery-operated water gun in his hand, and he shot it into the TV camera saying, and there were these silly ideas at this show, like this battery-operated water gun. And he pulled the trigger and he shot it into the screen. And he was making fun of it, like it wasn't going to make any money. And I made millions of dollars from it. So he was wrong about that, and he completely ignored my Post-it note. But what happened from that was, because of the attention that the news created while they were shooting my battery-operated water gun for the news, 2 people from 3M came by in suits. And I say suits because I was like about 20-some-odd years old at the time, and people wearing suits were like, oh, my God, they must be important. So these guys came over and they handed me a business card. Now, in 1974, a color business card was different. It wasn't like everybody had a colored, it wasn't like everybody had a colored business card. So I was impressed that the 3M was in color. And they handed me the business card, and these 2 guys said, we like your Press-on Memo is what I called it at the time, sticky note. and we'd like to bring it back to 3M to possibly license it. And so I said, okay. And I said, I don't have any patents filed on it, but I have a trade secret. If I disclose it to you, will you promise to keep that? Again, I was young and naive, and I didn't have NDAs in those days and things like that. But they promised me they would keep it secret. They would only show it to the 3M marketing department, get an evaluation, and get back to me. Well, that story turned into what my book is about now, because I wrote a whole story about it. I sued them later on in life. I sued them again. I sued them 3 times. And that's my story about my book.
Okay. Well, let's learn a little bit about you. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your background was or is.
When I was a kid, at 12 years old, I didn't know I was inventing, but I took a piece of furring strip wood. I put a wall switch on the bottom like a trigger. I put batteries on it to make it look like it was like the chamber of a gun. And I put a light bulb at the end. Now that was like creative for a 12-year-old to like build this toy, I called it. I'd pull the trigger, the light would go on. It would like simulate the bullet going out. I used to do stuff like that when I was younger, not thinking it was inventing. I didn't even know what inventing was. When I was creating product, when I started creating product, I invented a temperature monitoring system for the American Red Cross, where they were monitoring their freezes and their organ freezes and all of their important blood. And so I invented this system where if the refrigeration broke down, the caller would call them at home at night, wake them up and tell them you need to go down and either take the stuff out of that freezer or fix the freezer. So when I invented that and I started selling it, I invented the water gun, I invented the Post-it notes, I invented the first down laser, I invented a lot of things. I didn't know I was an inventor. I was just doing all this. Right. Inventing wasn't an occupation when I was a kid. It was like crazy inventors wearing Argyle suits or whatever, running around. I never thought of myself as an inventor. But after having patented things and licensing things and making millions of dollars, I realized I was an inventor, and that was my business.
Right. Before that, though, because you said that wasn't your occupation, what did you actually do for a living?
Well, when I was in college, I was in the United States Naval Reserve. I went to college. I worked for my father. My father owned a bunch of meat stores, and that's how I invented the temperature alarm system. My father had a breakdown in one of his stores while I worked there. He went away to Puerto Rico for a vacation. The stores were closed, and at night, the refrigeration went down, lost all the food in the store, cost thousands of dollars. So my father had a problem. I built a system to solve that problem. My father put it in all his stores. Walbaum's put it in all their supermarkets, and that grew nationally after that. And that was the mother of, necessities being the mother of invention again. I invented something because of a need. I solved a problem. So I worked for my father for a while. Then after that, I went to college for a couple of years, and then my father put me and my brother into business. He gave us money to start the company called Rasco Temperature Alarm. With my invention, we were selling it to supermarkets, hospitals, blood banks all over the world. And so that was my business. But while we were doing that business, I was doing other inventions. I was doing other things along the way, other toys for toy companies and things like that. So I became an inventor and reluctantly a businessman because you had to make money on a daily basis. Royalties come in quarterly. Getting paid every week is always a nice thing. So having a company is important. So that's my basic. I've always been an inventor, though. Even when I was in business with my own inventions.
Alan, when you're coming up with all these ideas, what's the first thing that you do? Like that aha moment that you have?
Well, it's funny. I have like the complete package. I was born with it. It's like this gift I got. When I come up with an idea, I don't only come up with the idea. I come up with how I'm going to draw it, because you have to draw it to be able to show it to people. I come up with how to protect it now that I know about patents and trademarks. I come up with the way of pricing it and offering it for sale and contacting the industry and the right person. It's just like there's like a certain pattern. You have to do all of this. Some inventors can't do that all, and I understand that. If you can invent something that's really good and partner with somebody that has the ability to be able to price it, to draw it, to build it, to demonstrate it, and then to bring it to market, it's better to give up part of your invention royalty to give it to somebody that knows what they're doing, rather than you doing it not knowing how to do it. But I always knew how to do it, and I put the whole thing together usually myself.
And you know what? I can relate, because when you come up with an idea, you're already going through the steps in your head of what it looks like as a finished product, and then you're going back to what needs to get done.
Exactly.
It's working that accomplished.
You're right. It's like working backwards. You foresee the finished product. Even if you have a breadboard prototype, it doesn't look anything like it, but yet it works a little bit like it. You have in your mind how it is finished and in the store already. So what you're able to do is take what you see finished already in the store and then work backwards and price it, figure it out, how to do the drawings and what's going to sell most out of it. And the unique thing is that the inventor that comes up with a good idea, when they have the foresight to see the finished product, you could build it halfway. A manufacturer could make it a different way, and it might not be perfect. You could tell a manufacturer, no, that's not my vision. I don't see it that way. And you're probably right, because you're the inventor and creator of it.
Well, we have two things in common. You're from Brooklyn.
Yes.
And so am I. And your first invention was 1973, and that's when I was born. So,
wow. That's like 48 years ago or something, right?
Well, my birthday's coming up. Yep. Almost there. Very interesting. Now, when you are coming up with the idea and you're envisioning how it's going to be and kind of going backwards and where you need to go to get to where you want to go, what's the first? You're making prototypes? Are you doing 3D drawings? Are you talking to a patent attorney? Tell us about the steps that you take when you come up with an invention.
Well, I call it I don't know if they call it that now, but we have called a napkin drawing. I guess they still call it that. The napkin drawing is something, once you think of the idea, you draw it on a napkin. We call it a napkin. You could do it on paper. But you draw it, and just so you could show it to an artist, because I'm not an artist. So I go to an artist, and I tell him, this is what I envision. This is how I think it should be drawn. And then he starts making rough drawings until I see pretty much close to what I think the finished product is. Once he has that drawing, I can then communicate that to the model maker, tell him what I want to build and how I want it to work. Now, mechanically, I'm mechanically inclined, so I can figure out how to make it work, no matter what it is, whether it's a battery-operated water gun or a laser line in football. I can figure out how I want it to work. Of course, I'm not an expert, so eventually down the line, I'm going to have to get a guy in that industry who isn't that creative to invent, but he is creative enough to know how I want it to work. And then we build it together and offer it for sale.
Very interesting. You mentioned that you start off with a napkin, or you could do it on a piece of paper. I'm very disappointed, Alan, because I use sticky notes. That's where I put my invention. So I don't know what happened to the sticky note.
I have an interesting story about the sticky notes. When I went to demonstrate the sticky notes when I went to demonstrate the sticky notes, when I first introduced them to the stationery industry, I put the sticky note on the wall. And it fell down. The reason it fell down is because I didn't press the top of it where the sticky part is. And the guy would sit there and say, that doesn't work. And I go, wait a minute, you have to press the top of it. And so after, people today know a Post-it note, you can't press the middle of it. Here, I got a Post-it note too. If you take a Post-it note and you press this against the wall right here, it's going to fall down. So the purpose of an invention, you need to demonstrate it properly. The way this invention was demonstrated originally, you have to press the top of it so it sticks. You can't press the middle. But when somebody took it and tried to put it on a wall and pressed the middle of it and it fell down, right away he says, this doesn't work, and walked away. So yeah, it's important to demonstrate how it works.
So your experience of being an inventor and going through the motions, tell us when you're coming up with it and you're going through and you envision it, but it doesn't always happen that way. There's plenty of inventions I'm sure you came up with that just didn't make it. What does it take for you to make that decision to move forward with it or to move on to your next idea?
it's not me. It's when you build a product that you come out of your head, you invent something new and you build it and you show it to people, you'll know right away whether it's good or not. And I've been lucky, all the inventions, I have like 40 United States patents. And out of all my inventions, they were all, I call it like going to happen. The things that I invent are eventually going to come to fruition. Whether I get it to fruition or somebody else does, these are inventions that I came up with that nobody ever did before, but eventually someday it's going to happen. Whether I like it or somebody else likes it, it's going to happen. So it isn't just as simple as coming up with an idea and then trying it out and then that idea making it or not making it. Because it is. It's going to make it or not make it. But the timing is important too. You can come out with the sticky note like I did, or the battery-operated water gun in 1973, but because of things like the Vietnam War, my battery-operated water gun didn't come out for 10 years. So for 10 years, I had a great idea with a patent, and nobody wanted it. But after the Vietnam War, people were back to buying toys that were shaped like guns. And then, so there's all kinds of things that create obstacles for your invention that you can't think of and you can't control. Some inventions you invent, you could be 20, 30 years ahead of your time. Like I invented the iPad. This is interesting. I invented the iPad. I called it the video page in 1999. I went into a bank to raise money for this company I was starting. It was called the video page. It was an iPad. If I took an iPad in 1999 to a bank and asked them for $3 million, they would give it to me. I went into a bank in 1999, showed them my video page, which was the same thing as an iPad today, and they gave me $3.5 million to start a company. It wasn't the right timing. Nobody knew what a JPEG file, with a motion JPEG file is. Nobody knew what a .mov was. Nobody knew what these motion videos were. Nobody even had cameras to shoot video. So that was an invention that's timing was like 20 or 30 years ahead of its time. An inventor comes up with an idea. He can't do the timing thing. He can only do the idea and hope his timing is right.
For sure. Tell us, you mentioned 40 patents. Now, you had to pick and choose which ones along the way to be able to go to the next one, because it sounded like you mentioned your dad gave you money and you started to hustle and sell the thermometers and the temperature readers. But to be able to, because a lot of inventors say the same thing. I want to see if this one is going to work out to be able to fund my next one and keep going. What was your story? Like, how were you able to just continue to roll into one into the other and just kind of make it through to be able to have 40 patents?
I was, some people are addicted to betting. Some people are addicted to liquor. Some people are addicted to cigarettes. I was addicted to inventing. And if I made $1, I spent it on a patent or a trademark. If I made $10, I spent it on a trademark or a patent. I just felt after I got hurt with the 3M situation in 1974 or 1977 when they started making it, I learned my lesson, and I figured from now on, if I think something is good enough for the industry or good enough to make it in the world, it's good enough to file a patent on. So I would put money up, or I'd have patent partners on my patents where they'd put the money up for the patent and we'd own it 50-50, which is a very good thing to do because 99% of the patents in the patent office don't make any money at all for any of the inventors. 1% of the patents in the United States Patent Office make money. I've been lucky with out of my 40, I made money on almost 17 of them.
And most of the work that you're doing, you're subbing out to be able to get 3D drawings and prototyping. Now, you've seen the evolution of prototyping. I'm sure before there was 3D printers, you were probably ripping things apart like I used to do, but not in 1973 because I was just, but to be able to see that evolution, what's your experience or what have you seen from where you started to where you are right now with the way that you're able to develop your inventions? Is it quicker, easier? Tell us.
Oh my God, it's so much different. First of all, even searching a patent. I mean, I didn't have Google. I didn't have cell phones. I didn't have all I had was I had to go to the patent office and look through microfilm, which I'm sure nobody, not even you, know what microfilm
I
are.
do. I know it. I know it.
So, okay. So I used to have to go to the patent office, sit in a room and go through microfiles looking for different things to see whether my idea has ever been done before. Well, now you can type it into Google and you can see if it's been done before. There's no comparison. I believe that when I was younger, it was easy to create new things, but harder to research them and know whether or not you're going to be doing something unique. Today, it's harder to make something unique, but it's easier to search it, like on Google. Type it in and you'll know in a minute whether it's sold or it's even in the industry at all.
Right. And what about prototyping? How did you start off with making prototypes to evolving where it is today? Because you're still inventing.
Right. I used to make breadboard prototypes myself. I take a piece of wood and I put whatever it is I'm inventing and make it work right on the wood, whether it be the battery-operated water gun or the laser line for football. I build it with parts I'd buy in the hardware store or parts I'd buy in the electronics store. I take them apart, use them for what I want to use them for. Like with my video page, I actually bought a laptop, broke the top of the laptop off, just used the screen, and I put together an electronic system behind it with no moving parts and solid state to make it an iPad. So yeah, you got to take what's out there and use it for what you can make out of it.
Tell us now about what you're doing. I think there's something with some football experience that you're working on. Tell us about that.
Well, a couple of years ago, I invented a system that is a laser line for football. We could show it how it works if you want now. Okay. So this is the laser line. Now, what it is everybody's used to the yellow line on TV now, which shows you where the first down is. That's only a graphic on TV. What I've developed was a system that projects the laser line right onto the field so that the players can see it, the coaches and the fans in the stadium and the fans at home can see it. The NFL loved it. Everybody loves it. And this year I added to that. I actually have a new system that I was just granted a patent on just this past a couple of weeks ago in the patent office on monitoring everything on the field, like the ball. I know where the ball is all over the field anytime in real time. I know where the players are all over the field in real time. I know where the goal line is, the first down line, the goal post, everything on the field I'm monitoring. And then I'm feeding it into a system, an algorithm that determines all the things like if the ball is caught and the player's knee touches the ground before he breaks the plane of the goal line or the first down line, I'll be able to tell you in an instant. So it's a system that the NFL and all pro sport, football, and college would be interested in using.
Wow. So you definitely stepped up your game, no pun intended, but listen, not necessarily stepping it up, but just the evolution of technology is really where you've kind of veered towards from the simple sticky note that you started off with stepping on it and putting gum on it and hanging it up and everything else to get the message across to your wife. But it's really interesting to see all the things that you've come up with. And I know how I answer this question, but for you, Alan, what's your baby? Which one is your baby?
The Post-it note. I mean, it's the most iconic product in the world. I mean, I taught in Europe for 2 years. And all over the school, wherever I taught, whichever school I taught in, I did a lecture at UC Berkeley in California. I did it in Latvia, Riga in Europe. Everywhere I went, everybody knew me as the guy that invented the sticky note. They didn't know any of my other inventions. That's why I did that introduction you saw at the beginning with the water guns and the toys, because only people recognized me for the Post-it note. And I'm most proud of that because everybody in the world knows about it.
Right. Well, that's definitely an accomplishment. And that's the one that's made you the most money?
No, the one that made me the most money was the battery-operated water gun. I made millions of dollars from that. I made money from the Post-it note, but only money I got in settlements from 3M. No other money from it.
And what exactly happened quickly, if you don't mind sharing? What was the result of your 3M action?
they recognized that I invented it, but they didn't want me to tell the world that I invented it because they had their own folklore or corporate law, whatever they were trying to do. And so I agreed with them that I'll stop telling people I invented if you stop telling people you invented it. And we signed an agreement in 1997 to that effect. They breached that agreement in 2014, 2015. So I sued them again. And so that's what my book, I have a book coming out that's explaining my entire problem I had with 3M from the very beginning right till the very end. And in there, I explain the ups, the downs, and I show all the proof in the book as far as like witnesses' testimony, the expert exhibits. Everything is in the book.
And is that the book behind you?
Yes, it is.
Is that hot off the press?
It just came. I just got it today, as a matter of fact.
Wow. Can you show us? Can you put it on the screen?
Sure.
That's an amazing accomplishment. And that's your journey of specifically the 3M Post-it note, but also you talk about your other inventions in there.
Everything, right from the beginning, right till the end. It's also, if you'll notice on the back of the book, I have a picture with me and Muhammad Ali in the 1970s, where I actually explained to him, because he was working with me to reunite the Beatles. He was, in fact, it's in the book about the Beatle thing, how I try to get the Beatles back together again. And Muhammad Ali asked me what else I'm working on. I told him about my Post-it note. Yeah. So this is my scene with Muhammad Ali when Life magazine was in his house taking pictures of me and him. I was actually explaining to him about the Post-it note in 1970s, something
Very
like
cool.
that.
So
yeah.
Cool. So Alan, there's inventors, entrepreneurs, startups. There's people that love invention and inventors out there. Can you give us some words of wisdom to people that might be stuck where they are right now with their idea, or they came up with something, they just kind of let it pass? If you can just quickly share some words of wisdom that you've experienced being an inventor all these years.
Do it. That's my advice. If you come up with a really good idea, do it. Because most people don't. They say, oh, I invented that 4 years ago. No, you didn't. Whoever invented and came out with it is the one that invented it. If you invented it 4 years ago, you should have come out with it. And if you don't have money to come out with the invention you're working on, partner with somebody. If your invention is good as you think it is, so will somebody else. If they don't think it's so good, find someone who does agree that it is good. And if you can't find anybody that agrees with you that it is good, it's probably not.
Well, that's some very strong words of wisdom there. And you just have to keep moving forward, right? But you have to be realistic with your invention or your inventions. And just like you said earlier, once you start, it just keeps, you just want to keep doing it. But you want to make good business decisions because you are putting time, money, energy, and effort into it. And it's very important for you to work on things that are going to make you money.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in this world today, even then, if you didn't make money on your inventions, you had to get a job to substitute or subsidize you.
Absolutely. Alan Amron, congratulations. All the success, everything. How can we keep in touch with you real quick?
Well, you can go to my website. It's called Post-it Notes, plural, inventor.com. And we can communicate through there. You can actually chat with me if you want, and you can get in touch with me there.
Excellent. Alan
or you
Amron.
can buy my book.
Oh, right. And we could buy your book. And
yeah, it's on Amazon, Kindle, and hardcover, softcover. It's really, I'm very excited about it. It's really cool.
Mission accomplished, and many more successes for you and your and the laser lines for football and everything else. All the best to you, Alan. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show. You have a great story, and keep on inventing.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you'd like to be a guest on the Got Invention Show, you can simply go to gotinventionshow.com. Thank you, everybody. And like I said before, and like Alan said, keep on inventing. Have a great day. And thank you again from the Got Invention Show.